All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and award seasons is over. We got Heisman Trophy winner. We got some, I guess, a little bit of controversy in the Friday night award program here. And come and join us for the second time this season because my co-host is at an NFL football game covering it from there. I'm joined by my co-host today, filling in, our executive producer, Drew. Drew, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Haps, I am living the dream, buddy. A little sad that, football season's winding down, but it's been a fun ride.
It has been a blast here. Hey, folks, before we get going through this, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. Fresh and I will be back with you. We will be dropping the playoff preview this week coming up. We got games on Friday and Saturday. Drew, we got to talk about this, though. You are a great expert of looking at NFL or NCAA players, kids at the college level, and how they translate to the NFL game. We're going to take a look at some of these guys who are up for awards here. If you didn't see this, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, first Indiana Hoosier to win the Heisman Trophy, getting 643 first place votes. Drew, I love you to death. And over the summer, you made one of the greatest takes that no one else believed in. You said Archie Manning was going to be very mid because he couldn't beat out Quinn Ewers. You saw Fernando Mendoza play this season. What do you think about him and his future NFL prospect?
Well, I mean, the guy just won the Heisman, so I don't want to, crap on his parade or anything, but he strikes me as the type of guy that is going to get a coach and GM fired, only because now that he's coming off winning the Heisman and he's probably going to be the top prospect in the draft, he'd be better off going to like the third or fourth best team that needs a quarterback, or I guess third or fourth worst team that needs a quarterback. But if he's going to end up I'm trying to think who's even going to be at the top of the draft that didn't just take a quarterback. Like, I don't think the Titans are going to take another one. But I just think he's the type of guy that if you put him in the right system and have some good players around him, he's a competent quarterback. Maybe he's going to be like a Kirk Cousins similarity there in terms of playing style or success, which Cousins has had a lot of success. So that's where it's like, hey, if he goes to the right system, he'll be fine. But I don't think he's the type of guy that will succeed in any system, regardless of the team and coaching around him.
Right now, I just pulled it up here. NFL.com, the current draft order. Number one overall pick would be the Las Vegas Raiders. What are your thoughts?
Well, the Raiders definitely need a quarterback, and maybe it helps that they signed Geno. I know Geno's been terrible, and they're probably looking to get off that contract, but at least it would give you like that redshirt year option where it's not, hey, we got to bring him in and start day one. They do have some playmakers on the team, so he's not starting from the ground up, but I think he'll have a solid, career because he is somebody that if he doesn't pan out as a starter, strikes me as someone that could have a career as a backup because he's not going to be a distraction. He doesn't have a personality that's going to cause issues with teams.
And I mean, I'm looking at it here right now. The dude he's got the prototypical size. He's 6'5", he's 225. Kind of gives me, otherwise I'd say like a Justin Herbert almost. I think maybe because Justin Herbert caught a lot of flack when, if people don't remember, he was supposedly to be the number one overall prospect coming out, and he went back to Oregon for a year. Mendoza is a junior, so I think all of us assume that he is going to declare for the draft after the playoffs. But the option is on the table that he could come back for another year. Let's say this, if you were one of his close advisors, not his agent because you got skin in the game, but like, let's say you were his brother, what would your advice be to him? Would you say like, hey, hang around for another year in the NIL era, you can still get paid, or strike when the iron's hot because you never know what your senior year is going to bring?
Yeah, I don't know that his NFL stock could get any higher at this point. You're coming off a Heisman year. You just beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. You're definitely, if you come back, what if you go to Indiana, you have a 2 or 3 loss season, you don't even make the Big Ten championship, and now all of a sudden you become a mid-round pick, whereas right now, I'd be shocked if he made it out of the first round if he does declare because, even when the quarterback classes, people say they're better from time to time or from year to year, better or worse. It's like no matter what, you could almost bet your life savings at least 3 quarterbacks are going in the first round every year, and he's definitely going to be one of those 3.
Right. According to a couple websites, He is neck and neck with Dante Moore out of Oregon as the top quarterback ranking. Depends on the site you're looking at. Some have Dante number one, some have Fernando number one. All right, so here's the top 5 in the draft here, okay?
Hmm.
And you tell me where the best situation would be out of those 5. A couple of them don't need quarterbacks though. Number 1 we said was Las Vegas. Number 2 is Tennessee. 3 is the Giants, which they're not going to take a quarterback after drafting Dart, and Tennessee is not going to draft after taking Cam Ward. The Browns are number 4 right now. The Jets are 5. Commanders have Jaden Daniels. The Saints and the Cardinals. Those are the, I would say, 5 teams that need a quarterback. Top 5
Yeah.
teams. Which situation do you
So
like him best in?
I would say either the Jets or the Cardinals out of
Really?
those teams.
Why the
Yeah, no.
Jets?
Well, the Jets are a dumpster fire, but they do have a decent defense and they have a defensive minded head coach. He's starting to find his groove a little bit, and quarterback play. The Jets have won games with Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor, and I think Mendoza would be an upgrade on either of those guys. So
Hmm.
I just think structurally they're in a better position now. I'd be crazy to say like, oh, the Jets are a solid franchise, but the Cardinals might be one of the few that are on par with being as bad, if not worse. I still never understood why they extended Kyler Murray in the first place. And then
Hmm.
now, it seems pretty obvious given the way they've not brought him back. I don't know, maybe the injury is more serious than I think, but he seemed like he got a 2 to 4 week injury and then they've just put him on the shelf ever since because the offense lit up under Brissett. So I think Mendoza to the Cardinals would be pretty solid. I don't know if he'll make it that far in the draft, but
Hmm.
I think Cardinals would be decent because they did just get Marvin Harrison Jr., so you have a playmaker there to throw the ball
Hmm.
to. But the Jets, I think, overall have a better roster than the Cardinals, and so that might be the better situation. Also, head coaching stability. I don't think they're going to fire Aaron Glenn this season or next, so that would be the spot.
All right. So a team outside of the top 8 that I just named you. Give me one more thing real quick. What team in the rest of the NFL would you say, if you can, he's on the board, let's say he's sitting there at number 3 with the Giants. I'm trading with the Giants to move up to number 3. This is the ideal best case scenario for him. Any team come to mind that you think would be like the perfect fit for him?
For Mendoza,
Yeah.
let's see. Honestly, it would be interesting to see if the Vikings would trade up for him.
Really? Why the
Yeah,
Vikings?
because well, the Vikings had a 14-2 team, and then they got rid of their starter and backup quarterback because they thought JJ was the answer, and then now all of a sudden they're realizing, hey, we suck
Hmm.
with him as a quarterback. So I think they're going to be in the market to do something because they can't just go forward with what they have. And you're either going to have to sign somebody in the free agent pool. But if you look at the upcoming quarterback free agents, there's nothing worth selecting there. So I think maybe through the draft would be what they would have to go.
Yeah. What about a team like, I don't know, do you think Pittsburgh might be in the market after him?
Potentially. I mean, they definitely need a contingency plan post Rodgers. I don't know if Rodgers is feeling like he wants to come back for another round, but even if he did, they obviously could still bring somebody in, get him a year into the system, and then unleash him whenever they're ready.
All right, let me ask you one more question. We'll move on to some of these other guys too, because I really do like your takes on some of these other players here. Last 4 quarterbacks to win the Heisman. Mendoza this year, 23 Jaden Daniels, 22 Caleb Williams, 21 Bryce Young. Power rank them coming out as prospects. Who did you like out of them as a prospect coming out? I know there's one that I got a hunch of what you're gonna say because we had a long talk in our draft episode about him, but which one was the best prospect coming out? Which one is probably the
Yeah, so I would say the one I had the worst is probably the one that the NFL people said was like the closest or the most prototypical prospect, and that was Caleb Williams. He was the hands down number 1 pick for multiple years. I never understood why going into it. He has gotten a little better with Ben Johnson now, but I would have him and Bryce Young kind of in the same boat. Like Bryce Young, I just felt was too small. Didn't really
Mhm.
see it translating. I also can't pretend like I saw Jaden Daniels coming. Like, I mean, of those three, I liked him the best. And he at least was showing up like he had the dual threat aspect. And obviously that's become more common in the NFL. So it was like, hey, if he's not the best at passing right away, he can at least use his legs. And then he obviously came in and lit it up. But even before that, I would have had him, out of those three. I liked him the most going into the draft. One thing I'll mention, which is interesting, and I'd like to get your take on sort of if this is the result of NIL and a little more parity or what, but was this one of the weaker Heisman campaigns, statistically speaking? Because looking at the quarterbacks you just mentioned, and even going back one more year, obviously that would have been Burrow, and Burrow had an unreal season, over 5,500 yards, 60 touchdowns passing with only 6 interceptions. Crazy year, 65 total touchdowns for Burrow. So let's call him an anomaly. Those other three, in terms of total touchdowns, Bryce Young, 50, Caleb Williams, 52, Jaden Daniels, 50. This year, Mendoza, 39 touchdowns. Not even 3,000 passing yards. Jaden Daniels had the least passing yards of those guys mentioned, and he had 3,800 along with 1,100 on the ground. So it's just, I took the average of Daniels, Williams, Bryce Young, and Joe Burrow, and basically Mendoza, 37% less passing yards, 28% less total touchdowns. So is the Heisman getting diminished a bit, or is it just that the talent has spread so much with the NIL that now the best season isn't going to quite be those crazy numbers anymore because less talent condensed to a single team?
I don't think it's a singular answer, but I will point out one thing to you is remember Jaden Daniels at LSU they had this high flying offense, but had a awful, and I mean putrid dog crap defense that they couldn't stop anybody. And Jaden Daniels had to put up points. They had to put up points and score. Same thing with Caleb Williams. And I remember having a very good conversation about him, about the NBA comparison to Ben Simmons, like puts up crazy stats, but doesn't make his team better. And that's what Caleb Williams was. That was USC without a defense there. So I think those two are when you look at statistically, their stats don't tell the whole story of their team because their team had to score like that. Bryce Young would be the intriguing one because Bryce Young won a national title with that Alabama team there. They're really good. He had some great players on that team. He would be the tough one. Is a great question. I thought, don't get me wrong, I think the world of Joe Burrow. I think he's a great quarterback. I really think he's a talented guy. I think Burrow has a similarity, though, to Julian Sayin because of the reason being extremely accurate. Sayin just broke Joe Burrow's passing record for completion in college. Burrow was throwing to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, where Julian Sayin's thrown to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and a bunch of other NFL level players. You kind of wonder, like, statistically, are they, what is the quarterback? I mean, they got to do something. They got to read the defense. They got to make the throw. They got to put the ball on target and within the range. It does help when you have elite level wide receiver play there. I'd be intrigued because I looked at Caleb Williams and you're right, he has improved. But then I looked at his quarterback rating here and he's down like in the late 20s for a quarterback rating. So is it really the defense? The defense has been phenomenal in Chicago, and he does have a fairly decent run game. Again, I'm not going to say the dude hasn't gotten better, but I am intrigued by where he power rated them. I don't know. It could be a difference with the NIL era, and there is way more parity than there was even 5 years ago. But we'll see how it goes.
Just interesting that, obviously passing is becoming more and more prevalent, and to just see the Heisman winning quarterbacks' total yards and touchdowns go down for the last 5 years, or the last 5 quarterbacks that have won. It's just interesting because it's like, obviously they're considered the best quarterback in college football that year. And it's like, not that the bar is being lowered, but it's just the overall production expected for the top player is going down, which is interesting.
All right. Well, let's jump down a little bit. I'm going to skip Pavia because Pavia is older. He's 6 foot. He's got a bunch of stuff working against him for an NFL career. But let's jump down to Jeremiah Love. Okay. Taking a look at what he did at Notre Dame. He's a different style of running back from the kid's 6 foot, 214. Last year, the number one running back was Ashton Genty 5'8", 208, but he's a little more different style. What do you see translating with Jeremiah Love compared to some of the running backs that have come out a little bit later? He's bigger than some of the other ones, like, because people don't remember Kenneth Walker the third, another running back that's come out recently that's had a decent NFL career, 5'9", 211, and you see Love at that 6 foot range there. How do you kind of look at him? Is he more like Jahmyr Gibbs? Or where do you see him translating to the NFL?
I'm not really sure I have a good comparable for him, but I do wonder if he can become a three down back in the NFL because,
Hmm.
you have some guys that are your first and second down, then you have typically a third down, either bruiser or a pass catcher, depending. And it's like he's got the size, but, a lot of times the question that comes within the NFL is like, does he run with too much of an upright style or is he going
Right.
to be able to get those pads lower and, power through the hole. So I think he's going to be just fine. The one question I do have kind of around him and just the team he was on, can't really affect the schedule, but he didn't go against, a ton of NFL caliber defenses. So it will be interesting to see how that translates. You could probably say the same about Genty, because he was at Boise State. He wasn't going against world beaters on defense regularly.
Mhm.
And I think some of that has shown up in the NFL. Maybe it's just the incompetence of the Raiders in general. It's like Genty has made some plays, but he hasn't really had the season you would expect, at least that I would have expected. I thought he'd be a runaway rookie of the year
Mhm.
candidate. And he's, granted bad team, but at the same time, his size is evident when he tries to run between the tackles. Like he's not very big and he's powerful for his size, but he's not powerful by NFL standards. And I fear Love, even being taller, may have some of that as well.
So I look at the four best defenses that I'd argue that he went against this year. He played at Miami. Again, new early season, he did have a slight injury that he was dealing with. First week of the season, Miami, 10 carries, 33 yards, no scores, 4 catches for 26. Home against Texas A&M week 3, 23 carries, 94 yards in a score, 4 catches, 53 yards in the receiving end in a score. So he had 2 scores in that game. And then the USC game was where he really kind of showed out. 24 carries, 228 yards in a score, 5 catches, 37 yards receiving. And I think was this week 12 at Pitt, 23 carries, 147 in a score, 2 catches, 20 yards. I think those would be the first 4 games that if I'm a scout, I'm looking at the tape from those 4 games right there. Most of my NFL players that are going to be on there. Texas A&M, I probably would say has the best defense out of those 4. But again, I think that when you have a young quarterback like Notre Dame did at CJ Carr, making his first start in Miami, if I'm the Hurricanes, I'm selling out against the run and making CJ Carr beat me. So maybe that's a product of the team there. I'd love to see that piece. But I like Jeremiah Love, but I'm like you. I don't have a great NFL comparison to him. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott, because he's maybe the same size, but I don't think he has. I wonder what his 40 time would be because I don't know if he has the breakaway speed Elliott had.
Yeah, Zeke had a good burst. And I don't think when you mentioned a comparison as Gibbs early on, potentially, the reason I didn't say, yeah, that's a good one is because I just think Gibbs is a little bit more explosive than
Yeah.
Love. And so that it'll be interesting to see, though, once you're on the NFL field and, even the 300-pound defensive linemen are as fast as
Mhm.
most running backs, that's where do you have the 2/10 of second on a 40 time against these guys, or are they literally as fast as you?
Right. And I think what sets Love apart, and I like him as a prospect a lot, is I think it's his vision. He's got good vision. He can see the hole, makes the first cut, makes the right read in the running game there. And again, he is in a pro style offense there with Notre Dame. So that does say a lot where some of the other running backs that we see have come from that spread system. But again, the
Mhm.
NFL is incorporating more spread tendencies.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think he has the patience or running style similar to Le'Veon Bell, who was
Ooh,
great at letting blocks develop and then attacking the hole as it opened up? He
ooh,
wasn't necessarily the fastest in straight line speed, but he was quick in small spaces.
I like that comparison a lot. I like that. Can he do the receiving end that Le'Veon Bell did? Can he catch the ball out of the backfield and then when he goes against guys who are quick as him, like a line when you put a linebacker on him or a free safety or a strong safety on him, is he Bell was great at making those guys miss. Where that shifting where you're right, seeing the field, making the cut. I like that comparison there. The next question I go, does he have the shiftiness? Is he able to move the hips and get on there? Because he is the number one overall ranked running back right now. His according to the draft scout that I look at here, he is looking at he's number one overall position ranked, and there's a clear separation between him and number two, which would be Jonah Coleman, and number three is Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State, Coleman out of Washington. There's a clear separation according to them in their ranking. He says his 40 time from Notre Dame in this one is a 440. 440. He says he has track verified speed on this one. So we'll see if that really translates. He'll be one that I'm definitely watching his pro day.
Yeah, same. And I definitely need to go back and watch a little bit more of him throughout this season just to see about that sort of, 4-4 doesn't that's not blazing straight line speed, but again, if he can be shifty and quick in those small spaces or in the open field making guys miss, then I think he'll be fine. You mentioned a couple of different stat lines where he had 5 or 6 catches in a game, and I think that's kind of the number he would need in the NFL. If he was getting 12 to 18 carries and 6 to 8 targets in the passing game, he could probably produce and help a team. But again, it's if you get that screen pass, you're typically behind the line of scrimmage. Can you turn it into positive gains? Because you're usually going to have 1 or 2 guys in that open field that you got to beat. And just comes down to, can you beat them? Because a lot of those guys that you're going to be seeing, like an outside linebacker, let's say, yeah, they're 285 running 4-4. So that's where the shiftiness comes in. Can you get them going one direction and then change back? And I
Yeah.
think he can. I just haven't seen enough to go like, oh yeah, he's going to be an automatic success.
Yeah. All right, Drew, let's go to one that I'm very intrigued to hear your take on. Friday night, big hubbub about this one. Mackay Lemon, who is a fantastic wide receiver. You were high on him very early. We have a show group chat that you texted and said, you guys need to start taking a look at this Mackay Lemon kid. He is really, really talented there. He wins the Biletnikoff over Jeremiah Smith. And when you look at them statistically on paper, I'll see if you can tell me which one is which. One has 80 catches, 1,086 yards, 11 touchdowns. Another one has 79 catches, 1,156, and 11 touchdowns. Do you have any clue which one's which?
I think the first one was Lemon.
It's actually flipped. The second one's
Flipped?
Lemon. Yeah, Jeremiah Smith had the 80 catches. Lemon had the 79 catches. What, again, you were high on Lemon before anyone else. And this is what we really love getting your NFL comparison takes for these college players. What is it about Mackay Lemon for a person who doesn't watch a ton of USC football? What do you like about him? What do you see about him? And then why do you think he was the difference between him and Jeremiah Smith? Because I also know you have a high level of respect for Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, I would say the 2 things that stood out to me most when I watched Lemon was being able to catch, like, contested catches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wasn't necessarily wide open all the time, defenders on him, but he would play the ball and attack the ball. And then also, kind of along that same line, his ability to create space when covered. So he would be running stride for stride with the guy, balls coming in the air, and then his ability to adjust to the ball, and then all of a sudden now he's open, or there's no defender that is in a position to play the ball. So I just think his shiftiness and then his contested catches were unreal. I forget the game I was watching. It was early in the season. I forget their opponent, but it was a back and forth game. And he was just reliable. I mean, I know they obviously had other receivers on the field. I didn't catch a single name of anyone but Lemon and just for the audience to know, I had never heard of him prior to watching that
Right.
game. And it was just like, okay, they keep throwing to this guy. And then it was just like, he's catching everything. He's open even when he's not open. And then now granted, he could get separation. I'm not saying the guy couldn't create separation. He wasn't the reason that he was doing the contested catches. That was coming back to the ball or different things. I saw a couple red zone routes where he just left defenders in the dust. Now, pivoting over to Jeremiah Smith, obviously, big fan. I love the Buckeyes. Smith was, even throughout the season going into it, everyone's like, oh, this is the greatest player in college football right now. Even as a Buckeyes fan, though, I never really felt like it throughout the season. Like, he would have nice catches, nice games, whatever, but it was never like, oh my goodness, this guy's taking over. And I would say that he even, maybe the stats back this up, I don't feel like this year Jeremiah Smith had as good of a season as Marvin Harrison Jr. did while he was at Ohio State. Like, it was a pretty quiet season for who was supposed to be the best receiver. Now, granted, the stats you mentioned, obviously, like, he was in contention for this award, but I wasn't shocked or upset that he didn't win it, because I felt all season I was waiting for that game from Jeremiah Smith, and it never really came.
The one I'd point to would be the Penn State game, where he went 6 for 123, 2 touchdowns. That would probably be his best one. He had a great Big Ten title game against IU, going for 8 for 144, but didn't find the end zone in that game, unfortunately. I don't know. I looked at Mackay Lemon, and the one that I think when we get closer to draft season, the game I'm going to watch is the Notre Dame game with Mackay. 4 catches for 76 yards. It's probably his worst game. But at the same time, too, Notre Dame's defensive backfield has been elite for a couple of years. Leonard Moore for Notre Dame is probably one of my favorite cornerbacks this season that plays the actual cornerback. Again, I like Caleb. We'll get to Caleb Downs here in a second, but Leonard Moore is dude. He is going to be a elite level NFL corner. And if you take a look at how Moore matched up from last year, and you look at when because what I love about using Notre Dame as the comparison is Notre Dame plays man coverage. They play a bunch of man coverage. They don't just play zone like most college teams do. And that's always a good comparison. The Iowa game, too. Iowa's got a couple of good defensive backs over there. Lemon, 10 catches, 3 and a score in that game. I think the game you're referencing that you text us in was the Illinois game. 11 catches, 151, 2 touchdowns in that game. He went off.
Yes. And I do think, like, one other thing worth noting is, obviously, I know USC doesn't struggle to get talent, but it's like, it was Lemon and everybody else. He didn't really have a Tate on the other side of the field to take any sort of pressure off. So that's another wrinkle to where it's like, yeah, you can't really focus all the coverage onto Jeremiah Smith because you have Carnell Tate on the other side.
Right.
I don't know who the next best receiver at USC was. I didn't watch a ton, but every time I did watch, it was the Lemon show.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you that. You bring up an interesting point there. You take a look at Jeremiah Smith. He had on the other side of him, had Carnell Tate. Again, Carnell Tate right now is graded as a first, second round talent, depending on which one you're looking at. But he is, from what the draft scout I'm looking at right now, has him as anywhere from about pick 16 to pick 45 is the range. And again, I think that's very reasonable for Carnell Tate. How much of that impacted Jeremiah Smith having Tate on the other side of him?
Like elevating Tate?
Elevating Tate,
I mean,
but also
yeah.
you talk about the statistical thing. Like having a second NFL level receiver on the other side, you're not going to get as many balls thrown your way.
Yeah, it definitely has an impact. And obviously, you get used as a decoy a lot if you have somebody else that's good enough to focus the offense to, which is kind of what Ohio State would do to some degree, where you might run Jeremiah to get the safety and then you hit Tate coming across the middle. So that definitely plays a factor. And some of my thinking around sort of Jeremiah Smith, what I worry about, and he's obviously a physical beast and he's going to be fine in the NFL. But if you look at like what happened with Marvin Harrison Jr., granted, goes to the Cardinals, not a great organization, so take it with a grain of salt, but doesn't have really another great receiver opposite him and has an okay year. And now even this year too, it's like not great. And it's like, how much of that was him at Ohio State having Ibuka on the other side, who has shown to be arguably the better receiver in the NFL now. And at the time, he was looked at as sort of the little brother. And so now, fast forward 3 years from now, who's the better NFL receiver, Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Smith, I would still be betting on Jeremiah
I
Smith,
would
but I
too.
think a lot of people would have been betting Marvin Harrison Jr. over Ibuka, and right now you'd have to give it to Ibuka hands down.
It's so crazy to think about, like, being an Ohio State fan, and over the last, I don't know, 8 years, the amount of wide receiver talent that has come out of Ohio State, like, it's not even close to, like, another team. You have Olave was the first one, and then JSN, who has just been lights out, like, amazing. Harrison Jr., Abuka, you got Tate that will probably come out this year. He is a junior. He could come back. And then you have Jeremiah Smith waiting in the wings. People forget about Brandon Ennis, who, when coming out of high school, was actually, I believe, rated higher than Carnell Tate in the high school rate. And then you got Quincy Porter behind him. On top of that, Chris Henry Jr. going to the bucket. I'm like,
Yeah, and I should be ashamed. I totally forgot to even mention JSN, who might be the best of all of them right
right.
now, you know?
And see, that would be, it's just, Fish and I have joked multiple times. One of us could play quarterback, and I would say just like take the snap, catch it, and just throw it up. Like before the pass rush comes, like you get it and just throw it up in the air towards where the receiver's going to be. And one of us could probably throw for 1,000 yards by just doing that with
Oh,
the
yeah,
level of
and
talent.
that's why, the narrative will continue where it's like, how good are Ohio State quarterbacks really? Because you're
Mhm.
just throwing to first and second round receivers on a regular basis.
Right. But if you're a high school quarterback, if you're like a elite 4 or 5 star quarterback, like why wouldn't you want to go to Ohio State? Because you're going to look really, really good. You're going to get great coaching. You're going to have first round quality wide receivers. That right there is going to recruit myself. And on top of that, I know I'm going to have a quality running back in the backfield. I know I'm going to have at least a passable offensive line. I mean,
And 90% of your games, you're going to have the advantage when it comes to talent on the field.
right.
So now it just becomes a matter of executing.
Yeah. So again, I'd look at it going, man, if I was a quarterback, I mean, yeah, granted, there's a couple of programs that are comparable, but I think just overall, if I'm a high school kid and Ohio State's offering me and I'm a top level quarterback, I'm really paying attention what they got to say.
Yeah, and it's shifted lately you ran through all the names in the recent years, like, it's shifted in Ohio State's favor recently, but we still gotta give a shout out to LSU as the original wide receiver U
Oh,
and
yeah.
still producing, it's just not quite at the scale that it used to be, and then obviously Ohio State's on a bit of a heater in the last few years.
Do you know who right now? I'm intrigued. Who they have listed as the number one wide receiver prospect. I know this is off topic here. Arizona State's Jordan Tyson, number one receiver prospect this year.
Yeah, he's a monster.
He is a monster at 6'2", runs at 4'5". And then Mackay Lemon is number 2 underneath him. And then Chris Brazil out of Tennessee is number 3 with Cardinal Tate number 4, according to this site that I got up here. All right.
Tyson, shout out all you fantasy football players. Tyson's gonna be an amazing red zone threat, so
Oh, yeah. He's
he'll
a
be putting up the numbers.
big dude, too. And then the kid from Tennessee, I'll be intrigued because he's 6'5" and then runs a 4'4".
Yeah,
Can he catch though? Like that's going to be
yeah.
a thing. How can he catch? That's always been the MO with Tennessee receivers in the NFL lately. All right, Drew. One last thing because I know you have a very strong feeling about this. Out of the top 10, best NFL prospect that didn't get enough love here. Which one?
Caleb Downs, not even a question. He's the best NFL player that's gonna be in this draft. I think he's gonna be, obviously, if he can avoid injury and stay healthy, 15, 18-year career. I think of Ed Reed as the best comparable.
Hmm.
Just always in the right spot, just a menace, attacking the ball, whether it's in the air, ball carrier, quarterback if he's blitzing, like he's all over the field. And I just think that whatever team gets him is going to have a star for 10 plus years.
All right. So we talked about this years ago, and we'll bring this circle back to it. Kyle
Hmm.
Hamilton. I was really high on Hamilton when he came out of Notre Dame. We talked about this, the safety position being a position that has been reduced a little bit with kind of similar in the vein of running backs.
Hmm.
What like, what is the difference maker with Downs that even though you say the safety position is reduced, like this is special. Like this is something that you can do even more. What do you see in that regard?
Flexibility and
Really?
just a weapon on the field. Because
Hmm.
take Kyle Hamilton, for example. The Ravens defense was awful to start the season. And what did they do to change it? They started bringing him down into the box to help with the run.
Mm,
And so all of a sudden, now you have a safety that's like a pseudo outside linebacker. And really, it's just you have a defensive playmaker that is a ball hawk. And, he's the first guy that's diagnosing the play. He's the first making the cut to the ball. And so you can use that guy all over the field. And then you think about, like, I'll use the Browns as an example with Myles Garrett. He lines up at all 5 positions on the defensive line. He can be coming from anywhere and he can make an impact. Clearly, Downs, you want him in coverage? Cool. You want him stopping the run? Cool. You want to blitz the pass? Cool. Like he's elite at all 3. So, yeah, maybe safety isn't the first position you take to build your team, but he's the kind of guy that you add him to a defense and you go from an average defense to a top 5 defense real quick.
yeah. The only difference between the two guys, and I'm just pulling back up their draft ranking. Kyle Hamilton was sitting at 6'4", where Downs is only 6 foot, I should say, only 6 foot. I think Downs is faster though. I think he runs a better 440 there. I'll be intrigued, man. If I'm a defense and
How do they compare weight wise if you have it up?
I do Downs, and this is coming draft prospect here. Downs
Right.
is 5, and Kyle Hamilton is playing at the NFL at 218.
Okay. So they're relatively the same because I could see Downs ending up around that 215, 220
Right.
mark.
Yeah, and I think part of that's just being grown man and
Yeah.
having a little more strength and a little more upper body on that. You take a look at Kyle Hamilton right now. Dude's only 24 years old in the NFL. He's insane. Like I go back and I still look at him. And I think Caleb Downs is probably I think the thing that's going to make Downs special is between the ears. He's one of the smartest safeties I ever seen. And I was talking to my dad about this, and he said, the defense. I go, the player that's going to be the hardest to replace for Ohio State is Caleb Downs. Like you'll get dip cornerbacks, you'll get pass rushes, you'll get all these guys. The intelligence Caleb Downs has for as a college football player is you can't replicate that.
Yep. I
So,
would love it if he were to become a Cleveland Brown. Oh, that
mhm.
would be awesome. But if I'm now going back to the draft that you mentioned, who's the number 1 pick? The
The
Raiders?
Raiders.
So yeah, they need a quarterback, but like the Titans could definitely benefit from Downs because it's like essentially, I know sometimes like middle linebacker is looked at it that way too, but like Downs could be your defensive quarterback. Basically,
Mhm.
if you have your quarterback on offense and Downs is now your best player on defense, like you have something going. You can build around that. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting. I've heard some chatter, not to derail it too much. I really don't think this will happen, but I'd like to get your take. People on the potential that the Titans could draft a quarterback again because they've been so disappointed with the Cam Ward experience.
I think it all depends on who becomes that head coach and takes over that position. I wasn't high on Cam Ward. I think he was a decent prospect, but again, I get it. Guys develop slower, but it's the first time ever a guy who had a 0-star ranking coming out of high school was ever the number 1 overall pick. There's something to be said about like just God given natural talent that you're born with, and I get it. People develop and he earned his way to being that number 1 pick, but I also think that there's a reason why those things happen. And I
Hmm.
wouldn't be shocked if someone came in and said, like, I think back to the Cardinals where they drafted Josh Rosen and then they turned around a year later and were like, well, this guy definitely ain't it. And drafted Kyler Murray. I'm here on NFL.com real quick, and I looked at the teams that need a safety according to NFL.com. The
Hmm.
the first 3 teams that need a safety: Washington, the Rams, and the Bengals.
Don't let the Rams get him. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I think it'd just be insane to have any of them. I would if I was the Browns, because I would love to see him on Cleveland as well, because I think he completely changes that. If they could take that Jaguars pick and maybe you draft if Shador is the answer, if you decide we're going to roll another year with Shador, we don't love this quarterback class coming out. Draft a left tackle because there's two really, really good, strong left tackles coming out in this draft with Fano, and I can never pronounce the kid from Miami's name correctly. I'll have to work on that for our draft episode. But draft one of those guys, or even Caden Proctor out of Alabama, who's just a physical monster, and then trade up from that Jaguar pick and be able to pick Caleb Downs. I'd be singing the Browns' praises for something like that.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
Now, a guy can hope. All right, folks, we had to drop a new episode for you because we needed to talk about these guys that won the man who has won the Heisman, and all the future NFL talent, because we will slowly start to transition from college football into the NFL. It's going to be a fun ride, but do not miss a single second of the action. Make sure you lock in. Make sure you are subscribed here. Hit the notification bell because we will go through the playoffs. We're going through bowl season. And once there's a national champion crowned, we're going to move on to NFL action and culminate in our full first round mock draft. Our producer Drew will be with us. Our legal eagle will be with us. Fresh will be back. Hopefully he's enjoying himself at the Jaguars game right now. And maybe even a couple of guests. Who knows? We might expand the mock draft here this year. We'll see. We might have a few guest surprises along the way, but make sure you hit the subscribe button. Follow us on social media. Like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks to Drew here for joining us. He's our executive producer, does a ton of stuff behind the scenes. You guys don't get to see all the work he does. A special thanks to him. Drew, that's all I got for today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Looking forward, get me back on before we get to the mock draft. Whenever you guys start getting more into the NFL, I got a lot to say, so I'm ready.
Let's do it, man. We'll come back on when we get to the NFL playoffs.
Sounds good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on the next one. Bye, y'all.